Once again to Community Viewpoint. I'm John Pawlak, your host this evening, and today should be May 9th, I'm hoping, and this is Maria Hurst. She made it down. Thank you for that.
Hello. Thank you.
And tonight we're going to have a discussion about the community environmental monitoring stations that are around the area. But before we get to that, I'd like to thank everyone who came out this past Saturday for the town cleanup. It was a little breezy, but it was the perfect day, and thank you so much for taking a little time out of your busy life the day before Mother's Day, cleaning the town up for Mother's Day. So thank you once again for that. And did you have any issues before we go?
I didn't.
Okay.
I'm really excited to interview these gentlemen.
Okay, this will be a great show. Tonight we're talking with Deputy Executive Director Ted Hartwell from the Desert Research Institute. He's the program manager for DRI's Community Environmental Monitoring Program, and he'll explain what that is and what they do. And it's been in the news lately about connected with the earthquake and the nuclear accident in Japan. So we have to Maria's left is Ted Hartwell, and next to him is Jeff Daniels, who is Associate Research Professor for Health Sciences at Desert Research Institute. And we would like you to explain a little bit what the monitoring stations are, why they're here, where they are. Actually, they're right behind us. That's the map that you get on your web page. It identifies everything, so it's you're comfortable being here in front of the map. But Ted, if you want to tell us a little bit of the history about it, who you are, and how you got started there, and all those things, please.
Sure. Well, the Community Environmental Monitoring Program is a network of 29 radiation and weather monitoring stations that are set up in communities and ranch sites surrounding and downwind of the Nevada National Security Site, which most folks probably know as the Nevada Test Site. And it has a mission of involving the public directly in the monitoring process. It gives them a hands-on role for monitoring for radioactivity associated with past testing activities at the site. It's funded by the Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration, and it's administered by the Desert Research Institute. Right. And DRI is the nonprofit environmental research arm of the Nevada system of higher education. Some people think we're associated with UNLV or UNR, but really we're a separate research campus. This is our 30th year in operation. We have a couple community members at each location that help us manage the station and actually collect the air samples for us. And while this program is about monitoring for radioactivity associated with past testing at the Nevada National Security Site, we were sort of uniquely placed to detect radioactivity associated with the nuclear accident in Japan when it happened. So we were able to detect very minute quantities across the network, and we've been trying to get that information out to the public since.
Cool. Can I ask, when you said the public was involved, can we just go back to that and say how is the public involved in the collection of the samples? Absolutely.
And let me give a little bit of history of that, because I think it's a little bit ironic that this program is modeled in part after a similar one that sprang up around 3 Mile Island after the accident there here in the United States. And there were people from this area, from the Environmental Protection Agency and from DOE, that were deployed to assist with that accident. And it was kind of a while it wasn't a serious accident in terms of effects to human health, it was a public relations nightmare in terms of the information that got out to the public, public trust in what the government and the plant operators were telling them. And so an independent group of citizens got together and formed a monitoring network, got themselves trained by EPA and Penn State University, and this really helped to restore public confidence in the monitoring results. So these people from DOE and EPA came back to this area and said, hey, we've got a lot of the same concerns in communities around the then Nevada test site. Mm-hmm. Let's identify people in these communities that are willing to take on the responsibilities of collecting the air filters, being trained about what ionizing radiation is, how it can affect health, and let them communicate a lot of the information to their neighbors. And so that's how the public involvement came about.
Okay. How does someone, I noticed you have a lot of stations around Nevada, one in California and a few in Utah. How does one become involved how does someone become involved in being someone who can help with that?
That's a great question. Early on in the program, the communities actually nominated individuals that they wanted to see involved in the program, and there was an emphasis at the time on involving science teachers in the high schools, and we've kind of continued that mission of involving teachers both in the public school system and some in higher education as well, and encourage them to involve their students in using the data that's collected by the network, using the public website, which actually displays near real-time readings on all of the instrumentation at the site. And so people kind of do it as long as they want to, until they retire or no longer want to do it. And we actually have a couple people that have been with the program the full 30 years as representatives of their communities. So.
Let's see if Jeff can put up that
awesome.
The picture of one of that one station, if he's there. Jeff, when you go to the web page for each individual station, this is the backdrop you'll get. And if you type in the name of the station, you'll get the telemetry of all those different units you have on there. What do we see there? What are we measuring when we look at that? I can't, even with my glasses, I'm not seeing.
There are quite a few things. We have, with regards to the radiation equipment, we have what's called a pressurized ion chamber, which is looking at your gamma radiation exposure rates in the area. That's kind of that little boxy looking thing on the lower left. And we also, on the far right, have a continuously running air sampler. That's the one with the kind of the gooseneck looking thing on the front of it. And it continuously draws air through a small filter, and that's collected every couple weeks, and that's analyzed for alpha and beta radioactivity, and also what's called gamma spectroscopy to identify specific gamma radionuclides that have been detected. And then the rest of the information you see on there has to do with specific meteorological things.
Regular weather station, basically.
Weather station, right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
put ours up there, would you, Jeff, so that people see what ours looks like? And that's over by the planning department, just directly south of it. We've gone by it. We just don't even give it a second thought.
I saw that the other day because I work in that building. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I wonder what that is. And so now I know. Now I know. So if you're out there and you're a student, a science student perhaps, or you may run into being able to be involved in a classroom that gets to analyze this information.
That's true if one of your teachers happens to be directly involved, but we encourage anyone who's interested to visit the station directly. If you have one in your community, there's a kind of an interpret exhibit that shows all of the real-time readings as well as what the program's about, and there's also a little mailbox with a brochure that gives you the information for the website and things like that.
Oh, that's awesome. And so the data, now the teachers are able to use the data, but the data, when you collect it, someone else will interpret it and put it into forms like you have in front of you?
These are some notes I brought about Japan. If we get into that, I've gotten, but...
Well, I wanted to ask Jeff a little bit about the interpretation of the data that you're collecting here. This is the data that you take and put into presentations. Okay.
And those calculations translate into exposure and to dose. So, for example, if your colleague will put up the picture one more time.
Of the station?
Of the station, or your picture.
Can you put it?
That's fine.
Thank you.
In this particular station, the gamma detector is on the left, on that little box on the left.
The white
that's
box.
the background radiation that we see normally here in Nevada. And that's gamma emissions from terrestrial sources or from atmospheric sources. It's not the Japanese emissions. Photons don't come across an ocean like that detector is designed. Now, of course, things that emit gamma radiation can land on the top of it and then cause certain amounts of activity. But typically, in what we've seen, no gamma radiation was of the kind that came from Japan. What was unique to this particular event is you see the white box on the right next to the sign. That, I believe, is the particulate detector, the gooseneck that you had up in the beginning. And there is a particulate filter, and that's what we saw. The emissions that came from Japan were aerosolized. They were very high temperature, volatile isotopes that were emitted during the leak. All those clouds of steam that you saw got caught up in the atmospheric conditions, blown across the ocean, and then trace quantities, because the ocean's very big. The surface area that we're talking about is very wide, and it's distributed over that whole area. And it comes into contact with other things, rain, for example, and deposits into the ocean, or it's transported in the air all the way across and detected in trace quantities, very small levels. Those levels are then monitored in a counter, and we see whether it's iodine or cesium or other materials that were emitted. And now, I mean, what we saw from the March accident is that there's very little left coming out of Japan, because they got most of the reactors under control. The concentrations that we saw here in Nevada are extremely low relative to what they were seeing in Japan. And the issue is that does it represent a health risk? And according to all of the records, all of the authorities, both in emergency response and in the medical community, the risk is quite low, if not absolutely
negligible.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I think the public can feel comfortable that we're safe, they're taking care of it, they're monitoring it, and if there was a problem, it would be reported and handled very quickly, I'm sure.
You would have other groups also that are corresponding with your telemetry also to back up. If sometimes we have issues not believing just things from one person, and if the EPA tells us, or DOE, or independent laboratories, there would be more than one person.
Even the students in the nuclear energy department and the health physics department at UNLV have been monitoring. People at the University of California.
These are like backups, yeah.
Exactly. And then the federal government, the EPA, has been doing its own monitoring as well.
So nowhere does anybody say that there is a health hazard.
Not for the United States.
Not for us, no.
And in fact, just to conclude that remark, so far there's been no radiological incident in Japan. None of the people in Japan have reported serious effects. Even the people that were irradiated because the isotopes got in their boots when they went into one of the cleanup areas, they were released from the hospital. So there's been no radiological event in Japan that can be associated with a death or a serious injury at this time.
Right.
That's good.
No,
I'm sorry, could I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
I'm so excited about this.
I didn't mean to start something.
I just wanted
That's
to
why
say,
we're here. Okay.
so we're not just monitoring for that, but you have many different, you mentioned different chemicals or isotopes that different things in the air. So there's not just one type you're monitoring for. You're monitoring for many different types so that you can catch one or all of them.
Well, the importance of the Japanese monitoring, we'll stick on Japan right now, is this analysis is very expensive, and we don't have the resources, and neither does the federal government or even the Japanese at this moment to monitor for everything. So what we're looking for are those isotopes that are of most concern. And radioiodine, particularly iodine-131 with a 8-day half-life, is of concern because it concentrates in milk, and then people can become exposed. It actually deposits on leafy vegetation and then gets concentrated in the milk. And cesium-137 with a 30-year half-life can also impact people. And these are internally ingested. We're not worried for these isotopes so much about external exposure as internal exposure. And so those are the two isotopes that are of most concern and why people are looking for them, and us as well. And then there's a few others that we can detect and do.
We had one unit over in Tacoma. Why do we have one in Tacoma?
Well, historically, there was a monitoring station actually in Shoshone when testing was still active out at the Nevada National Security Site. That went away after testing ceased in 1992, and one of the former DOE program managers of this program suggested that it would be good to continue to have a monitoring station in California, so that we had a relationship with that state as well. And one of our longtime station managers, who was a station manager when we had one in Shoshone, Brian Brown,
Right.
also became a station manager again when we put in a station there at Tacopa.
Right. And that's at the Tacopa post office
Post
over
office,
there.
yes.
And in fact, I was at one of the
Brian's
trainings.
very busy.
Yeah.
He is very busy.
You had some trainings, like 3 trainings for the operators. I had the honor to be at the one that Brian had, many years ago. So that's another reason why I'm interested in this CEMP also. And it's very important, and it's important that we realize that they're there and what they do and why they're there, and how to access the information. Easy way to do it, rather than giving a long URL for that, just Google capitalize CEMP, and that'll come up #1 on your web page. So that'll give you the information you need, and you go from there.
These are at the station, right? That's
Yes.
on 160.
I didn't take them all. I only took a few. I took a few of them. There's more in the little mailbox.
This is a very, very nice comprehensive brochure that tells a lot of information. It has the map in it. So if you're interested in that, just go up to the station and grab one of these, because this is a great, great brochure.
And one thing I want to add about the website is that you can get not only the current readings for the station, but you can get all of the archived readings back to about 1999, which is when DRI took over the technical operation of the program from EPA. So you can literally, if you want to see what the temperature or the gamma radiation reading was on March 23rd, 2002, you can put that date in and for any station and see the hour-by-hour readings. And also develop all sorts of cool graphs and tables, depending on what your interest is.
And the Japanese data is on the station, is on the website as well, and an explanation of what the data results mean is there too.
You have a wealth of knowledge over there. There are links to, you could do a college course for radiation there. There's so many different things that you can access through your webpage also to make yourself a little bit more knowledgeable about what you're looking at here, the radiation,
That's
and what's related to it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Please do.
that's a good point, because if you go to the website and you look at the radiation readings historically, it gives you a better feeling what background is and what the elevated levels that you see from Japan might be. And typically those Japanese levels have not shown up. So it represents a minor increase in the amount of radiation that we're exposed to. And I should qualify that by telling you that, yes, you may be breathing it, but it's unlikely that you're eating it or any other factors are contributing. So that's another reason why the trace amounts are very low.
Can I ask a question, since we're talking health risk right here? What would be the comparative values ingested or exposed to getting an X-ray or having, radiation? Well, obviously radiation therapy for treatments of illness is different, but like, dental X-rays or chest X-rays or something like that.
Oh, thanks. They're hundreds to thousand times low. We're working, we're trying to get some form of a graphic that will show you that. In fact, the Japanese have started to put that kind of information up too, but they're hundreds to thousands of times lower. The risk levels that we're talking about are well to the right of a decimal point, which means 1 in a million to less.
Okay.
And without giving you an exact number, I can tell you that no medical professional and no emergency response person is comparing these to any kind of risk level that would be significant. And the technical term for that is de minimis, which means no significant increase in health risk.
Okay.
And that's why they're telling you that there's no problem with the amount of radiation that's coming forth from Japan.
So the amount that you would receive, like having an X-ray or something like that, is much greater than anything you'd be exposed to here.
And
thousands and thousands of times.
Right, and the other thing to remember is that in radiation, the rules are that if it's beneficial, you do it. And so an X-ray, even though it's a significant amount, it's
the benefit outweighs the risk.
Exactly. If you have a broken bone, you'd want to get an X-ray.
Exactly.
And if you don't, that's why we don't take X-rays of feet to try on shoes anymore, right?
Do you remember those?
I was a little boy when that was going on.
I remember those. Yeah.
There weren't many places that had them because about that time people started to make the question of whether this was important. But yes, I do remember.
Buster
those.
Brown, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I just had a flashback. Thank you.
I like to share.
And you saw it here first. No. Can we look at this data a little bit? This is from Japan.
Sure. Well, this what I have right in front of me are some website statistics. We were kind of interested to see what sort of traffic we would get on the website after we released the data to the public that we had detected small amounts of radioactivity from Japan. We did a small interview with AP Nevada, and within 12 hours I got an email from my cousin who lives in Zambia sending me a link from Eurasia News Time, Africa Times or something, and saying, glad to hear everything's okay in Las Vegas. So it went global pretty quickly, and in fact we saw an increase in our traffic of almost 100-fold from our normal day-to-day traffic. At one point in time, we were getting several thousand hits a day, and that's from 104 different countries around the world, primarily, of course, the United States and Canada, but Japan was number 5 on the list of countries that was actually accessing the CEMP website to see what we were detecting over here in the United States. But I also brought some general information on the amounts of radioactivity that we had detected and what types of radionuclides. Folks might be familiar with, of course, radioactive iodine. Heard a lot about that in the news, which was one of the isotopes we detected, as well as cesium-137 and 134. These are all fission products that also would have been produced, for instance, during the nuclear testing program when it was still active. But the reason that we know that what we're seeing is not something left over from the testing program is that there are several of these very short-lived isotopes, like iodine with an 8-day half-life, cesium-134 with a 2-year half-life. And so these are things that would have long been out of the environmental record from past testing. And so we know that it's from Japan.
So if you got iodine, you know it's new.
Right, because you've been testing for 30 years, and you know that these things aren't showing up anymore, and now this incident happened and they're showing up.
Right, exactly.
So,
And you know even more of it that it's a nuclear reaction because there's so many of these fission products like cesium, like iodine,
Right.
and it's not just one because there's other things that could be involved that would make it something else.
and these things are maybe showing up in, well, obviously they're showing up in Japan, and then you're testing for these same things, and they're the same. So
Right.
So we only have less than 3 minutes now. Oh, God, we should do another half-hour show.
I know we should.
Yes.
Be happy to come back.
Well, you have an open invitation.
So hopefully this program allays some of our fears, not only through this program, but our local newspaper in the past has printed a positive article about the CEMP and its readings. You may have seen this gentleman, Ted, on Las Vegas TV. Or maybe you've just looked at the CEMP on the website yourself. But look for yourself. The facts are there, and you have all the information from the website here and also from the show tonight. And you were talking about going global. We're global, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because, yeah.
If you missed any part of the show, you can see it again Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m. Or you can go onto the YouTube website and type in Community Viewpoint, KPVM, and they will all come up, and you just click on any episode you want, and you can see it again.
And here's an added benefit from the CEMP website. On the page in the bottom left-hand side, they have tritium, which is you don't find at these stations, but the DRI takes yearly readings for tritium.
That's correct.
It's in the water.
Yes, test the municipal water supplies at each of the communities for tritium, which is one of the more mobile radionuclides from past testing.
So the results are here, and basically we're negligible here also. So if you'd like to look for that yourself, folks, it's on the website itself also. So that's another added bonus from your site over there to alleviate any fears we have from anything in our waters in the Pahrump Valley here. So once again, I'd like to thank Jeff and Ted for coming
Thank you for inviting
by.
us.
Thank you very much.
I'm really tickled to have you here, and because this is one of my pet projects, and hopefully we've educated you a little bit more about it also. Go see the station, see what it's like for yourself, and call Ted or just go to the website, give him an email.
Call me anytime.
Yes.
I answer all the emails myself. So
It's
Or you-
good information to research over the summer if you're going to be taking a fall science course too.
Or if
Would
you
be
ever
a
go
good
see
project.
the Las Vegas Philharmonic, this gentleman's there too. He plays the cello, so multi-talented individual. So thank you very much for
Thank
watching
you.
tonight. We still have a minute. So
So I wanted to ask you how you guys became involved, but we don't have time for that. But you definitely both seem passionate about your work, and we appreciate the work you're doing. It's great.
I'm a big proponent of getting science to the public in understandable form, because most of the scientific research that's done in this country is funded by tax dollars, and so I think it's incumbent on scientists to produce products that the public understands, to see what's being done with their mones. So
remember,
and this is a great pamphlet. So, and then this is just a start, and then start here, and then you can.
remember at the Desert Research Institute, you have the Atomic Testing Museum right next door to it also, and that's the stopping off point, the beginning point for the Nevada Test Site Tours, as they used to call them. But if you'd like to, you go there and go online and see if there's any tours available. I think they're probably booked up for the next 6 months because they're still very popular. So that's another thing to do if you'd like to see what's happening at the Nevada Test Site. Thank you. We're out of time.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
You're very welcome.